Finally, it's been mentioned I'm happy to welcome Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for what will be his fourth address to a joint session of Congress. He will set the record, surpassing Winston Churchill as the foreign leader who has addressed Congress the most times, because we live in historic moments and because his testimony directly to Congress is so important with regard to what's happening in Israel right now. 120 hostages languish in tunnels deep in the land over there in Gaza, built by Hamas. These tunnels have been, and that includes, of course, 8 Americans, and we cannot forget that. Our two nations are united in our common cause to bring the hostages home, and we are united to stand against our common enemies. As Iran and its proxies, including Hezbollah and the Houthis, have become increasingly hostile, they attack Israelis in the north and in Tel Aviv, we have to be clear that Israel is not alone. It has never been more important than it is right now for us to stand with our closest ally in the Middle East and our traditional partner in all these things. And it is outrageous to me and inexcusable that, as the leader mentioned, that Kamala Harris is boycotting this joint session. This is an historic moment. It's an important moment for the country for all the reasons we've said. The gravity of the situation cannot be overstated. And yet, Kamala Harris will abandon her seat. As you all know, as the vice president and as serving as the president of the Senate, she is supposed to be seated next to me at the rostrum. She will not be there because she refuses to attend. She needs to be held accountable for that, and she needs to be asked very searing questions about why. They went down the roster to find out who else would sit in the seat. Senator Patty Murray declined the opportunity as well. She will also boycott the event, skip the speech. They landed on Senator Cardin, who is retiring from the Senate, so has little political risk. The idea that they're making political calculations when our ally is in such dire straits, fighting for its very survival and fighting back against the horrific attack in October is unconscionable to us. America's relationship with Israel has always been bipartisan, and it should stay.
Israel fighting for its survival? Are you freaking serious? Israel is fighting to survive right now. Is that the story you want to give the American people? Are you freaking serious? Our vice president has committed inexcusable and outrageous acts because she chooses not to be there to support a war criminal, and you call it politics? I call it morals. This has been determined in the international courts. Kamala Harris had nothing to do with that. The Democrats had nothing to do with that. Netanyahu is a war criminal. And with honor, with pride, with dignity, our vice president, our future president, decided not to participate. We don't need another version of Hitler or another version of Napoleon or another version of some, got another co-host coming in, of some egotistical maniac who thinks they can just be a dictator, who thinks they can just kill people, who thinks they can commit genocide and not face consequences. Thank you, Vice President, for that outstanding act, for that courageous act of leadership. Thank you, Vice President. And speaking of our Vice President, since we've had our last, hi Sean. Hello, how you doing, Sean?
Hi.
It's going good. It's going good. Already getting started on this prime minister who is disturbing me in my city.
Who?
The Israelite prime minister in town.
The Canadian Prime Minister? Who are you talking about?
Netanyahu from Israel.
Oh. Yeah, every time I start hearing stuff about him on Reuters, I just go ahead and skip that part. Oh, me.
So, since we last talked, we've had a new presidential nominee, basically. We have a new running mate for Trump, JD Vance. What are your thoughts? Like, are you excited about the changes that are happening?
I am not excited for this election. I'm actually deflated about it, and I also feel a little vanquished because I can only speak for myself. I am just sick of Trump at this point. I'm tired of the memes. I'm tired of the jokes. I'm tired of people mimicking him. I'm just sick of that orange man with the bad comb over. I'm done. I am over it. Now, don't get me wrong. Prior to Kamala Harris, we had Shirley Chisholm, and that was a moment in time for us. You know, when she was in the seat, also briefly, but it was a moment for us. So, you know, technically speaking, Kamala won't be the first woman of color in that seat. But giving credit where credit is due, I am proud that she stepped up to take it over, because I was disheartened when I saw that letter from Biden saying in so many words, yeah, I'm stepping down. And I'm like, oh man, okay. So what's going to happen? And when she stepped up, I was like, okay, so we got somebody. Now, in all actuality, this was my hope. My hope after he wrote that letter was that he was going to officially resign and then just hand the presidency over to her. And then when November comes, we'd be turning out to re-elect Kamala Harris. You see what I'm saying? So
right.
I'm having a mixed bag of feelings right now. I'm just all over the place with this.
Well, I think I'm actually glad he stayed, because it allows Kamala more time to focus on campaigning, as opposed to saying that she has to fulfill the duties as a president also.
That's true.
So I do like that, and I think on a holistic level, and when you look at optics and perspectives from the American people, I just think that this way was the best way. The way they cared about it, even down to the point where Obama seems to be purposely and strategically didn't even come out immediately and endorse Kamala Harris. And so I just think that the way they tried to make sure it was democratic, it didn't seem like they already had somebody pre-picked. I think they did the best they could. You know, the only thing that they could have, I mean, if the only way they could have done better to me is if Biden would have made this decision earlier. Yep. I think what I'm hoping that comes out of this the most,
I wish you had made
is that
decision before the primaries.
yeah. And but I'm hoping that our mayor and that our congresswoman take notes, and they decide that, hey, look, I've been doing this a long time, and in some other cases, some people have been doing this decades long, and you know, you've done a great job. Let's hand over the keys.
Yeah, I really feel strongly about that too. Because don't get me wrong, I did vote for our Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. I did vote for her several times in the 2.5 decades I've been back in DC as an adult, because I used to live here as a child with my mom, and she went back to North Carolina. So since being back as an adult, I did vote for her. But then it just got to a point that I'm like, all right, excuse my language, all right, bag of bones, it's time for you to get on up out of that seat before you turn to dust. So, you know, she did a few things that were promising, but then I felt like she could have did more on, you know, issues that were federal issues. Like HUD is a federal issue. She's not really dealing with that, you know, because we, as Ward 1 constituents, went to her, and I think it was 2018, she came out to Parkview School, also known as Bruce Monroe at Parkview, and did a Norton in Your Neighborhood, and we haven't seen her since. Like she didn't follow up. She didn't, you know, say, hey, you know, I want to come back to your community. Do you think you can, you know, raise awareness? You know, I mean, I just feel like if you're going to hold that office, I don't care if it's council member, ANC, mayor, Congress, House of Reps, senator, if you're going to hold that office, then your job is to be working for the people. A lot of them have forgotten that they work for us, because it was us who voted to put them in there, and it's us who can vote to take them out.
I totally agree. Now, tonight we have a very special guest, someone that I have definitely come to know over the past, I'll say, year. Might be 2. I've been in Ward 7 2 years, so I might have known him for 2 years now. Wow. But my dear buddy Michael Havlin is with us today, and let's welcome him.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Michael is the president of the DC Streetcar, and let's get straight to it, man. I mean, how are you today?
Excuse me, y'all sound like a law firm, Michael and Michael, and their associates.
Yeah, let's do it. Sounds good. Sounds like a good logo name. I'm doing good. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, I'm president of Friends of the DC Streetcar. So
that's right.
We're not officially affiliated with DDOT or the DC Streetcar. We're a nonprofit of community members right here in Ward 7. But I'm doing good. Happy to represent the nonprofit and kind of discuss our vision for how the streetcar can help people here around the neighborhood.
Now, that's interesting to me, because I kind of want to hear your thoughts. We have, I'm not sure if you've met my dear friend Shantae High. Shantae High is a guest host tonight, and I met her in Ward 1. And so I wanted to kind of have a different perspective along with yours tonight. And so I just wanted to hear first what theories you may feel like you could debunk, and why you think wards west of the river may not be as enthusiastic about a streetcar expansion.
Well, I don't want to comment on any one person's particular perspective, because I don't know them or what their.
Well, I'm saying as a whole, there's a vibe, Yeah.
Well, So in regards to this specific project, the streetcar extension to Benning Road Metro Station in Ward 7, I can, if we're supposing that there may be people west of the river who don't want the project to happen, I would suggest a lot of that has to do with the broad pattern of this city generally not wanting to invest east of the river. Pretty much any project over here gets substantially delayed or defunded. So when we talk about different council members or different people who fight against the streetcar extension to Benning Road Metro Station, to me, it's just a broader pattern of divestment from east of the river. I think that's one of the chief explanations. I also know that there are a lot of people who are skeptical of the streetcar in general, and I think a lot of that has to do with pretty poor implementation of the vision. 2-mile streetcar line doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense because a 2-mile streetcar line was never supposed to make sense. It was always supposed to be part of an 8-mile line from east of the river to Georgetown. And that's the vision that would be successful. So I think opposition to the streetcar is a combination of people just wanting to divest from underserved communities in general, and then kind of some negative perceptions around how the project's been implemented so far, over the last 10 plus years.
Well, would you say those are perceptions, or do you agree that some things just weren't done right?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Certainly some things were not done right. But in my opinion, I don't think the mistakes of the past justify scrapping the entire project. I think what we need to do is improve it and do it the right way. And when you look at that original vision of an 8-mile streetcar line from Benning Road Metro Station to Georgetown, that would provide real utility to people, and real connectivity and real access to opportunity, access to amenities, access to services, access to jobs. And so I think the solution is to move forward and do the projects that were promised and not let it die on the vine. But examples of, things that went poorly with the initial segment, they should have given it a dedicated lane to begin with. They didn't. They're making some progress on making a dedicated lane on H Street Northeast. Imperfect progress, but they're making progress. And to me, that's the biggest thing. The fact that they allowed it to run curbside in mixed traffic in the first place. It was an obvious mistake. I don't think that makes the entire project a failure, but it was a mistake. And the streetcar is not as efficient as it could be now because of that mistake. The other mistake is I think it would have made more sense if they could get the budget to do it, is build a longer line in the first place. Building a 2-mile line from Oklahoma Avenue to Union Station with a really poor connection at Union Station, I think really set us up for some negative perceptions, because while the line is certainly useful to a lot of people, 2,500 people ride the streetcar every day. That's a service they rely on. The city would probably have much more positive perceptions if we had made it a little more useful to begin with, rather than just building that initial 2-line segment. So I think the biggest mistakes they made were choosing to have it in mixed traffic for the entire length, and then not building more of it more quickly. To their credit, if they had built the full 8-mile line, their plan was to have some of it in a dedicated lane, but they didn't build any of that portion. And so I think that there were a lot of mistakes along the way, but despite some of the attacks and negative sound bites we hear, the streetcar does move a decent amount of people for a 2-mile line. There are 2,500 people who use it every day, 80,000 people every month, and that number continues to climb. And Before the pandemic, it was even higher. Before the pandemic, it was 3,000 people a day, and sometimes as high as almost 120,000 people a month. And so as 8th Street continues to grow, those numbers are going to continue to go higher. And if we get the connection to Benning Road Metro Station east of the river, it will serve a lot of people who live over here, as well as people who live, in PG County, for example, that want to ride the metro into Benning Road Metro and get on the streetcar from there. So I think the solution isn't to scrap it, it's to improve it by giving it dedicated lane and extending it to more parts of the city.
So when you say extended to more parts of the city, I'm going to post up a map here. This is what you're talking about, correct?
Yeah, that's the plan is to, I think it's a 2.2 mile extension, something like that, 2-ish miles.
So this extends it to Benning Road. Now I'm not sure if you remember one of our forums with the Ward 7 Council. We had Ebony Payne suggest that this be expanded to the new Fletcher Johnson Urgent Care Center. What do you think about that?
So I'll say a couple things. So one, Fletcher Johnson is pretty close to Benning Road Metro Station. It's a 10-minute walk. So even if it's not extended all the way to Fletcher Johnson, I think as is, extending it to Benning Road Metro Station would provide an anchor and support for the park at Fletcher Johnson and all the other developments and services that are supposed to go there. A 10-minute walk is pretty close when you're talking about developments in public transportation.
I mean, we're talking about an urgent care hospital, a facility, in a ward where where it is actually underappreciated that many of our children and many of our adults are handicapped either physically or mentally. So, I mean, to say it's a 10-minute walk, yeah, but
For the physical.
me walking 10 minutes with just my autistic nephew can be a task.
And
Yeah, that's a great point. And so I would love to see the streetcar go to Fletcher Johnson. I was just trying to mention that there still will be some level of connectivity, even if it's not perfect. But yes, getting it to Fletcher Johnson, that could be a potentially useful and logical terminus. I guess part of the reason I hesitate is we're struggling just to get it to Benning Road Metro Station. There are people that keep defunding this project. They don't even want to see it extended 10 feet, let alone 2 miles, let alone another.
Well, let me butt in, and Sean, you can feel free to talk to butt in and ask any questions. But while you're saying, but I need to just post this while you're talking. While you mentioned that, here's a graph, the table that shows the amount of money it costs in comparison with other cities in our country. In DC, as you can see, we're spending over $10.5 million in expenses. And if you see the fair revenue, it's zero. As compared to San Francisco, they are spending $74 million, but they are getting fair revenue back. So there is hesitancy and there is some type of some issues going forward with it. But they are valid. We don't want taxpayers' dollars to be misused, to be mishandled,
squandered.
Yes. So, let me say a couple things. One, we live in one of the most powerful and wealthy cities in the history of the world. If there's something worth doing, we can afford to do it. If we have the courage to raise taxes on the wealthy.
Well, then why don't we have reparations?
And that's
you're asking the wrong person. We gotta ask our council members that.
The state.
We live. The unfortunate thing is. Sorry.
Say it again, Sean.
I was wondering wondering, because in this last oversight hearing, a few months back, I was hearing testimony from some of our more wealthier counterparts, and they were insisting upon their taxes being raised because they can afford it, but that system has not been implemented. The low income and the low income working class, our taxes keep going up, and it's putting a squeeze on us. So my question was, I wonder why they haven't raised those taxes yet.
Well, I mean, and I would add on, why aren't the Friends of DC Streetcar advocating for a tax on the wealthy to help pay for the DC Streetcar? I think that's something that you guys are you?
Yeah, every time, maybe not every time, but in many of our testimonies to the council, we have specific proposals around increasing taxes on the wealthy, increasing taxes on high value homes. Many proposals. It's just, the reality is we have a pretty politically conservative council. I mean, as much as people want to talk about DC being so liberal, et cetera, when it comes to fiscal policy, for the most part, the council is somewhat conservative. So,
well, you know what that means, then, don't you? That means we need to start flipping over some rocks and finding some new council members to be, some future council people, some future ANC.
As a nonprofit, I can't comment on that one, but maybe Michael, you can.
wait, Michael and Associates.
Well, I am already actively with the Rising Voices of Politics. We are actively already recruiting fresh ideas, fresh faces, fresh people to run every single day. From the seat of commissioner to the seat of council to the seat of mayor. That's one of the main things that we do is help others who need help running, and we recruit others who we feel like will be strong candidates. I'm not necessarily sure. See, here's the thing. I do believe that the expansion of the streetcar would be totally beneficial to people. I mean, I have a confession. 2 weeks ago, it was scorching hot outside. I was waiting for the X2, and all of a sudden, the streetcar came. And I was like, you know what? I don't really do streetcar, but I'm hot, and it's here. And I did the streetcar, and it was amazing. It was like, it was freezing. It was nice and cool, and I enjoyed the ride. However, I still had to get out and get on the X2 because the streetcar ends at Oklahoma Avenue. So it was kind of, at the end of the day, like, what the hell was the point? I should have just waited for the X2 anyway.
That's right. I mean, it sounds like, Mike, you might be a friend of the streetcar too. It's nice, right? I mean, it's a really nice ride. It's, in my opinion, it's like the best way to get around. It's nice.
Well, here's my thing. It's a good ride. It's. I don't have a problem with the ride. I have a problem with the potential consequences, as we've already talked about. I have a problem with it costing taxpayers millions of dollars, and we're not getting anything back. I have a problem with
I agree with that.
It's just not being a plan. It's not. I keep trying to think of this plan, and I remember when this was first proposed, and this is a great plan, but it just seems problematic. Like, even if you expanded H Street to Benning Road, like my problem is, then what are the consequences for the people in that area? Are they going to get displaced?
Mm-hmm.
We got Fletcher Johnson getting built up. Capital Gateway is going to be built up pretty soon. These areas are getting built up. This is going to be considered downtown Minnesota. You know, like, come on. And the streetcar just adds to that problem. And I'm like, I don't know if me and my sister can afford to live there after everything's complete.
Right.
You know, we're in a condo. I don't know if we can afford to pay those housing taxes. I don't know.
Exuberance. The exuberant prices. And to that, Michael, I want to say this, right? When that streetcar plan first came out, I was like, why wouldn't they put this downtown to run past, like, the Verizon Center, Chinatown, all down by the museums where the tourists would be on and off. That's where the revenue is. You're really not going to.
That was James Butler's plan when he was running for mayor.
Who?
James Butler, when he was running for mayor, he was proposing to extend the streetcar the opposite way, all the way down K Street to downtown.
I mean, honestly, it would get a lot of, and K Street is already jacked up, but it would get a lot of ridership on K Street. It would get a lot of ridership down on 7th, the bottom end of 7th Street, all the way down, even clean down there if you end it down by the wharf. Down there where you get off by, you could get off by Hood and then have the streetcar turn around and come back. You literally in walking distance of the wharf right there. So if they ran it there, or even ran it past the wharf and run it down toward the Navy Yard, like past the baseball stadium and down there by the end of the Navy Yard where the barracks are. You see what I'm saying? You would get a lot of ridership there. You would get a lot of ridership on K Street, more so than you're going to get where it is now, running along 8th Street and then right there past the stadium parking lot.
Well, and that was part of the plan, was to have the streetcar go to a lot of those downtown locations and potentially, additional streetcars servicing those. The history of why they started on 8th Street is a little sordid. I mean, initially they tried to do it in Anacostia. They ran into some issues with the right of way. And then 8th Street seemed like the easiest option. And they were trying to do some economic development support there. So they kind of just rushed to get it in on 8th Street, but they were always supposed to build the other parts too. And they just didn't do it. But I wanted to return to something you mentioned, Mike, earlier about affordability and the potential negative impacts of the streetcar extension. Because you hit the nail on the head. It's really about housing affordability. Mm-hmm. When we talk about displacement, what we're talking about is housing affordability. Mm-hmm. And my perspective, our perspective is that public transportation investments don't cause displacement. What causes it is lack of affordable housing. And a lot of times when DC or any city in the country makes a large public investment, whether it be in streetcar, whether it be in grocery stores, whether it be in metro stations, they don't do it in parallel with housing policy. They need to also build more affordable housing in parallel to any big investment they make. So if they're planning a streetcar extension, they've got to build more housing supports. If they're
friends of DC Streetcar say, hey, look, we will not support any expansion unless there is a written agreement of some sort that this percentage of affordable housing will come, or that this community benefit will happen as a result of this being built.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we advocate for more housing when we testify to the council, both all sorts of housing, increased housing density, increased affordable housing. And I mean, we see some of it. There's some more housing coming on, but it's not enough. And it's disappointing to see that there's not more foresight about it. But we do what we can. We're a small nonprofit, Michael. You know?
But what I'm saying is, if you know that there isn't, like, say you advocate, and you get to the point you're like, hey, look, we tried our best. We know, like, it's just not going to be that much affordable housing. But we do want the streetcar here still. Like, so are you saying that you still will go for it with the streetcar knowing that they haven't done?
It's going to come to that. I don't think it's going to come to that, because we see some of the developments that are coming. I mean, you see with the Cedar Realty, well, it used to be called Cedar Realty, now it's called something else. The one that they're planning for Minnesota and Benning. I don't know what the new company is called. They've changed hands so many times. But where the DGS building is going and all that, that's going to have a lot of, well, one, it's going to be a lot of housing in general, which is a good thing. But it's also going to be a lot of affordable.
That area, let's be realistic. That's the area where they're where they're placing a new halfway house. Where our most well people aren't going to want to stay in that area. But we're talking about expanding the streetcar to Benning Road. Well, that area is going to have Fletcher Johnson and Charles Allen has already talked about how even the streets and the intersection is about to transform. Like these are to me, those are totally different areas. On Minnesota Avenue, where the halfway house is coming, where there is a McDonald's that is just flooded with drugs, alcohol, and all kinds of trauma situations. That's totally different from where homes and houses are at Benning Road and East Capitol Street, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I live right down here too. I live right by Benning Road Metro Station. I walk over to Minnesota and Benning pretty frequently. Go to the bank, go to the grocery store. It's still the same neighborhood. Yeah, it's very different. Very different parts of the neighborhood, but it's still the same neighborhood.
Someone commented. I'm going to make sure I show the comment. They want to build up H Street and thought the tourists from Union Station was going to help the process.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I think that's right.
We did lose a lot of money when it comes to tourism that we did expect to have. That's a lot of money in that department.
But I don't want us to lose the discussion of this housing issue, because they go hand in hand. Housing and public transportation, they really go hand in hand. They're land use and transportation. They're wrapped up. There's going to be a stop. There's going to be a streetcar stop at roughly 3900 Benning Road, which is kind of just north of that on Benning Road by the Safeway, basically. Mm-hmm. Kind of close to where Marshall Heights Community Development Organization is. Boom, right there, having that streetcar stop there, that instantly allows for so much more housing right by the stop. And a lot of it will be affordable housing. Same goes for, Benning Road Metro Station, where they're going to put the terminus streetcar stop. Having the metro station, having the future streetcar stop, boom, that instantly allows for a lot more housing. And a lot of it will be affordable housing. That doesn't mean we need to do more. And I'm hoping someday the people who are doing creative work around social housing in Anacostia, for example, can maybe find resources to do that kind of work here too. Because we need more creative types of housing affordability too, more than just.
That was very. There was a huge part when they redid the bridge over there by Anacostia. There was a deep study that had gone forth, I believe 1 or 2 years worth of studying, to ensure that when they rebuilt that bridge, I'm trying to think of the name of it, slipped my mind, but when they rebuilt the bridge, that it would not displace residents, even how they're building up the area over there on Anacostia Park and everything, it's becoming beautiful. But they put in months and even in some cases a couple of years worth of homework. They actually hired an outside agency to go and investigate and put in this kind of research and homework to make sure that people didn't get displaced. And here we are in Ward 7, where there is proposal to redo the bridge also there by Minnesota and Benning, and to redo this bridge, including the streetcar tracks. And so I personally believe that the same study should be done. It just seems like that when it comes to issues like housing, displacement, education issues, it seems like our city and everyone is quick to just say, yeah, let's help Ward 8. Yeah, let's make sure Ward 8, this doesn't happen to the people in Ward 8. But sometimes, Ward 7 has the same poverty issues. Ward 7 has them same problems. And we need that same attention in Ward 7.
Oh, you're completely right. It's not enough. And I don't know where they got the money to do all those studies, but it'd be nice if it was coming over here too. I'm with you.
Anything to add, Sean?
I feel that housing is a big issue for me. You know that. I have been fighting for equity and the TOPA rights for Park Morton, and I've also been working with previous developments like Brooklyn Manor and the Woodner, and even the students at Howard, when their housing went under fire, all these folks reached out to me for an equity plan. So I was like enthralled about the idea that, they were like, oh, we saw your Park Morton equity plan. We want you to come meet with us and help us write one for our situation. I was like, I'm on it. I am on it because it's been 3 weeks since I had a one-on-one meeting with Councilmember Robert White, and I noted to him that housing security begins when we can own our homes. That's it, and that's all. Because there's no rent caps anymore, so landlords can be as greedy as they want to. So it behooves us, especially as Black and brown people, to be able to acquire equity to start to close the wealth gap. It behooves other people to invest in our small Black-owned, veteran-owned, disabled-owned, women-owned, LGBTQIA-owned, disadvantaged Black businesses, so that we can begin to close the wealth gap. It is not fair that we're always the target for housing. They know that we can't afford $4,000 rent out of pocket without working 3 jobs and bringing auntie and Nene and cousin Fufu in the house. We got to bring everybody in to pay the bills, and then we got that housing. If it's a person that's living under housing, they're going to be under fire immediately. Because why? They have unoccupied, illegal occupants. And the housing authority will soon send them a letter saying, cure or vacate. And what happens? They have to tell everybody.
And right there at Benning Road, we have Lincoln Heights.
Yep.
Like that's one of the
Pat
biggest
Malloy's property.
Areas that
they're being redeveloped right now.
And could you imagine what the rest when the streetcar comes and Fletcher Johnson comes and a new Benning Road comes and a new East Capitol Street comes? Can you just imagine what happens to our people from Lincoln Heights?
we're getting severely pushed out of this city. Like, it is beyond my mind being able to fathom how fast we have been pushed out of this city.
Michael, speaking of affordability, does this expansion call for people east of the river, specifically in Ward 7 and in these areas, to be hired to complete these jobs?
Right.
That's a good question. So we've certainly advocated for just that, and it's a little complicated with there's something called a project labor agreement, something, I think that's what it's called. And any project that falls within certain dollar ranges is required to have a project labor agreement in the District of Columbia. And but I'm a little unsure on how that gets interpreted as it relates to, like, is something considered a sub project of something else, or is it all part of the big project? Because as you know, there's the bridge reconstruction and then there's the streetcar. At one point, they all were one project, and now they're kind of multiple projects. So the short answer is I think that there are likely paths to requiring a project labor agreement, but I'm not sure. But we do advocate for it. We've testified for it multiple times, and we will continue to do so. But absolutely, they should be hiring people from Ward 7. But I'm not positive on whether or not they have to. The details are a little complex.
By law,
but
DC residents are supposed to be first hires by law.
Yeah, and I think we need, we're going to continue advocating to make sure that happens. But we are a small nonprofit. We do what we can.
I get it. Another thing that we often push for is the HUD Section 3 registered businesses being able to get contracts as well. Not just about hiring individuals, because we need that, but we also need our small businesses need these contracts, because if this city is going to be completely gentrified to the point that it's going to be totally unaffordable, then the only people who are going to be able to live here are people making six figures or more. And that's not equality. That is not equality for, people overall. When this was dubbed Chocolate City, although it was Chocolate City, we had a great mixture of cultures and people here. You know what I'm saying? It may have been because it was predominantly Black. That's why it was named Chocolate City. But baby, we were the rainbow before the rainbow became the LGBTQ's mascot or symbol or whatever like that. But DC was the rainbow. We had Blacks, white, Asians. We had Caribbean. You name it. We was a gumbo pot, baby.
Folks, don't forget that you can comment. You can email us. You can even call us at 202-670-9110. Also, do not forget to like. Do not forget to share. Do not forget to send stars. We need your support. Just wanted to throw that out there.
So, Michael, I wanted to mention, to me, this is when we talk about streetcar, when we talk about displacement, people on this side of the city deserve nice things. It doesn't matter what your income level is. It doesn't matter if you live in affordable housing or unaffordable housing or what your background is. You deserve nice things. You deserve nice investments. And the streetcar is a nice thing. It's one of many nice things that this city can and should provide to residents east of the river.
Someone just commented. They said, I think streetcars are supposed to help connect residents to employment. That's how they help build affordable housing support. I think, but it was only created for H Street to Union Station. It's a very good point.
Yeah, and sorry.
No, go ahead.
We were just agreeing.
Oh, okay. And that is part of it, is it connects people to opportunity. But it also comes with the fact that when you make a major public investment, whether it be streetcar, whether it be grocery stores, whether it be whatever, you're inherently making the land adjacent to it more valuable. So you also need to put protections in place so that rents don't go up. And what really frustrates me, we talk about this all the time as a nonprofit, but what kind of frustrates me is that some of the leaders in the city that talk about streetcar is a bad thing because of this displacement impact, they're nowhere to be seen when it comes to, well, what's the solution? The solution shouldn't be don't do nice things east of the river. The solution should be build more affordable housing. And same goes with the lack of dedicated lane. The fact that the streetcar doesn't have a dedicated lane, that doesn't mean we kill the streetcar. That means, well, come up with a plan for a dedicated lane. And so a lot of times,
well, it's easy for you to say because you don't ride a bike that gets stuck in the streetcar lane and almost bust your head almost every day. Of course, you can say that. I'm like, we need to stop this nonsense now.
Oh, come on.
I was also hit in a bike lane.
Oh, did I say bike? I meant dedicated lane. Dedicated lane
Okay.
for the streetcar.
I guess that's what I'm saying. It does need a dedicated lane because the way it's set up now, if you're riding your bike, first of all, cars want you to ride to your right, and the streetcar is on the right.
Yeah.
It'll be different if the streetcars were strictly in the middle. That might be different. But they're not. They're on the right. And that setup where there's just completely mixed in with traffic and bikers is dangerous, especially to bikers. If we try to make a turn or we try to do anything on that streetcar lane, our tire will get stuck in the track.
In the tracks,
and we could fall. I literally, when I ride now, I literally go to either I Street or I go to G Street, and that's how I go. There's no way that I can go down H Street.
Right. And not to mention, if you're on the same side as the streetcar, as a driver, I've been stuck behind the streetcar, which starts to ultimately back the traffic up because the people on the left get aggressive about not letting people merge over. So, you're sitting there and you really don't want to sit there and people are blowing the horn at you and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't build a bridge and jump over the streetcar.
And that's the thing.
And that's why I think DC streetcar should, even though it's a vehicle per se, I think that the friends of DC streetcar should more so always advocate for a street plan that is pedestrian centered.
Yes, starting with this, because it bothers me that the lights change and the pedestrians walk at the same time the lights change. We need to set the lighting system up where pedestrians go first. Once they time run out, then change the light. If they walk against the light, then they are breaking the law. They're jaywalking.
Yeah, it's not fun to be a pedestrian in the city sometimes. And I see that comment about the tracks.
Somebody
and that's the thing. There are very fair and valid criticisms of the streetcar, like you're talking about right now with the tracks and the lack of a dedicated lane. And on the other hand, the impact on rental prices. Sometimes what I find frustrating is that some of our leaders in the city, when they raise those criticisms, they're not raising them because they actually want to do something about them. They're raising them because they want to cancel an investment east of the river. They're just looking for a way to justify robbing east of the river of a massive investment that would provide a lot of benefits to people over here. Because if they actually cared about the criticism, they would actually come up with a solution for it. As a nonprofit with like an annual budget of $2,000 a year, we can't, but our elected officials can. And I get very frustrated when I hear council members, talk about this negative thing about the streetcar or whatever, because they're not coming up with a solution. They're just trying to justify canceling an investment east of the river.
So, Michael, can I say this to you?
Go ahead.
When you hand them a solution, you can complain, but when you come up with the solution for your complaint, they still find a way around it. I'm telling you the truth. Right. Dealing with the government firsthand with DCHA and housing, I complained about certain things as the resident council president, and then I came up with a solution for those things and gave them the solution, and then they made every excuse in the world not to implement that solution. So this goes to show you that there's a bigger agenda here that doesn't involve the people.
That's right. I think you're right.
If that's the case, then Friends of DC Streetcar needs to be 501c4.
No comment. No comment.
I love it.
But okay, well, maybe adjacent to that realm that I could comment on. I think it's fair to say we know who our next council member is. It's not official yet, but in DC, the primary basically is the election, and the primary is over. So our next council member, Wendell Felder, he actually wrote his master's thesis on the DC streetcar and how to have equitable economic development from the DC streetcar. That is specifically what he wrote his master's on. And now we have him going to be our elected representative in Ward 7. And I've read it. I've read his report, and
it's public?
I'm not sure. I don't believe so, but I bet if you reached out to him, he might be willing to provide it to you.
Okay.
Or maybe, let me check on that for you. But there's a way to do it equitably. We just need someone to stand up and do it. And maybe we have that person now. I'm hopeful.
I believe in Wendell. I'll say this. I'm always cautioned when I feel like people are the mayor's great friend. But I believe in Wendell. I believe I see the same passion that I actually possess. I do believe in him, and I believe our ward is destined to move forward. And I'm just praying that while he's moving our ward forward, that we can stay in our ward too and enjoy the ride.
We need an equitable economic development plan.
I love it. Off the record, well, we're still live, but off subject. While I have you here, I am planning to host a voting drive. Would Friends of DC Streetcar be interested in that?
I don't know if I can give you an answer because I'm not sure if we're allowed to. I don't know if we're.
You can't. You're not allowed to endorse a candidate or anything, but you can encourage people to be registered to vote. That's something that we want to encourage people to do.
Okay. Well, I promise you I'll run it to the board of directors, but without their approval, I don't know if I can commit. But you have my personal support. That's for sure.
Thank you. It was great, man. We got to get you up here some more. We got to track some progress, and have you keep coming back to see how far we gotten to see, or how much further things have been delayed, should I say?
We'll find out. There's always more. I don't think it's gonna. I'll believe that it's happening the day that I see it.
But the bridge is for sure, right? The bridge is for sure this year.
The 2025, yes.
I mean, yeah, 2025. So we might not have the streetcar, but we will have the bridge and we'll have the tracks, and the tracks will keep us with a constant reminder that it's coming. We can just
They
look
took-
at those
they took
tracks
the tracks
and know
out.
it's coming.
They took the
Huh?
tracks out of the plan. They're gonna. This was so ridiculous about this. They're doing
that
all this work.
changes
They're gonna have to
things.
redo a bunch of it to put tracks in. So they're gonna build the bridge with basically the original plans minus all of the streetcar elements.
So then when it's time to add the streetcar, it's going to be a mess.
I mean, I'm not an engineer, but that sounds right to me. I don't know. I mean, the better way to do this was all at once, and it seems penny wise and pound foolish to spread it out over another few more years. But that's what they're doing. They're
That's
saving
why
a few pennies
it just
today, so
feels
they
like in
cost
the
extra
city you
pounds
have to
later.
have lobbyists. It feels like in the city you have to have lobbyists.
Well, there's a lot of powerful ones in this city. We're not one of them.
All right, brother. We're gonna. It was definitely fun to have you today. I definitely wanted the people to hear more from you, to see a different side of you. Most people just know you as, hey, I'm the guy that's pushing the streetcar, and so I wanted people to see that you have a great personality, and you're definitely a good person.
Thank
I've
you.
never.
I appreciate that.
I've never had any reason to believe otherwise.
That means a lot, and thank you for having me. This was fun, and I look forward to seeing you in person sometime.
Oh yeah. Hopefully at the voting drive.
See you all. Bye.
Pleasure meeting you, Mike.
Nice meeting you too. See you.
Bye.
That was fun. Before we go, I just want to give a few announcements. Starting with the senior drip. There are two more actually senior drips this summer. The first is August the 1st, and after that is August the 12th. They're from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. August the 1st is going to be at Fort Stanton Outdoor Pool, which is at 1812 Erie Street Southeast. The one on August the 12th will be at Woody Ward, which is an outdoor pool at 5100 Southern Avenue. Also, heads up. Not everyone is thrilled, but this is where we are. Non-U.S. citizens can vote in the upcoming election in our city. If you are or you know someone who is a non-U.S. citizen but is interested to vote, they can learn more and even register to vote at a free info session hosted by Legal Aid DC on August the 27th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Mount Pleasant Library. That is in 3160 16th Street Northwest in Sean's Ward 1.
Ward 1, baby.
Did you have any closing statements, Sean?
Just thank you for, again, allowing me this opportunity. It's always a pleasure. And to the listeners, thank y'all for tuning in. We really appreciate you. And for the folks that are, chiming in with their comments and feedback.
Before you leave, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I just put it
up. What is this? Let me get my glasses.
Girl, this is America's drunkest mayor ever now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mayor Giuliani. I just felt that was just so funny. I had to post it. Anyway. It's just when I was young and coming up, I can just remember like 9/11, and I can remember watching President Bush and him just talking about Mayor Rudy, and Mayor Rudy was just like this heroic person, and it's just like to see this rapid fall. I say pride comes before fall. All right, Sean. I will talk to you later. Chris says
All
hi,
right.
by the way. Chris was at the protest downtown at the mall and got stuck down there. He was trying to make it to the show. I was down there briefly, but I came one out early. But yeah, he did. He did say hi. Wanted me to say hi to everyone and tell you guys that he missed you and he's looking forward to next week. Join us next week. Next week we're going to have former Ward 7 council candidate and current. I hope I don't get this wrong. I believe Hillcrest. I believe it's Hillcrest Heights Civic Association president Villarreal Johnson. He said don't call him this, but VJ. Stay tuned, folks. See you later. Goodbye. We're going to end with a very, very old school DC song. Maybe you might remember it, maybe you might not.
Washington, D.C., the only place for me to be. The town where history is always in the making. Yes, right here in Washington, D.C., founded in 1790. It is the one and only place that can be called by George. Yes, George called it the Federal City. No boats, but paddle boats. Cherry blossoms fill the air. Foggy Bottom, Farragut Square, and great white columns everywhere. Georgetown, Tenley Town, Metro down to Chinatown. U Street can't be beat, nor Rockby Park, and pandas barking at the zoo. Washington Monument, lots and lots of government. A donkey and an elephant, the White House with the president. 4 years, or even 8 years. Washington is my town, no one better put it down. D.C., you're for me, your pools reflect our history and dreams. Washington, D.C., the only place for me to be. The town where history is always in the making. Yes, right here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital city. It is the one and only place that can be called by George. Yes, George called it not Washington, but that's its name. With cherry trees and apple pie, red, white, and blue up in the sky. It's Washington, by George, it's Washington. Yes, it's my Washington.